Previously you saw that when you are working with MATLAB, we used an array, a numerical array or a cell array to store data. Okay. So one was for homogeneous type and another one was for heterogeneous type. Now you previously saw that the combination of these two is Python's list. Okay, so this is list is one of the built-in data types that are available to store data in Python. Okay. Alongside list, there are three more data types that are available to store data. So these data types are different and they are not available in MATLAB. So the one of the next, that is tuple. Okay. So tuple is another data type that is quite similar to list but a bit different, and they actually offer different characteristics. Okay. So in this lecture we'll look into the tuple. Now tuple, the first thing about tuple is that we use, for list we use square brackets. To denote a tuple we use this round brackets like this way. Okay, so to denote tuple we use these round brackets. Let's take a look at an example here. Let's define something. Say for example a is equals to, okay, so a is equals to, say for example English, that is one element. Okay, say then physics. Okay, so this is the second element. Okay, so now as you can see, the name of our variable is a and the type is a tuple and the size is 2 since there are two elements there. Okay, so this is the way of creating a tuple. Now the primary characteristics of a tuple is that the tuple is immutable. Immutable means you cannot change the tuple or you cannot modify a tuple, similar to the string that you just saw. Okay. That means you cannot add something or remove something from a tuple. Okay, so we'll look into that a little bit later, and this is completely different than a list. Okay, so in a list you can add some item, you can remove some item, but in a tuple, okay, that is the major difference between a list and tuple. You cannot do that. Okay, so the number 3 is it allows duplicates. Now what does this means actually? Number 3, we'll discuss that later. What does it actually means, the significance of that. Let's move on. Okay, so at first let's start, let's see how to create a tuple. So this if you actually uh, create the elements, okay, if you actually write the elements within these round brackets, you can create a tuple. But be careful here. Say for example if we want to do create a tuple like this way, if we try to do like this way with one element, okay, this is not a tuple. As you can see, the type of the b is an integer. Okay, so if you try to create a tuple with one element, and that will not work this way. You have to write something like this way, 5 comma. Now using this comma, this will be defined as a tuple. Okay, let's make it c. New variable. Now if I write like this way, now as you can see, this is a tuple. Okay, so when you have only one element, if you just put it inside a round bracket, okay, that will not work. You have to place a comma alongside, okay, to create a tuple. For multiple elements, that's obvious. That's not a problem. For single element, this is one thing. You can also create an empty tuple like this way. Okay, so this is also a tuple of size 0. So that is the way of creating a tuple. Let's come here. Number 1 is creating a tuple. Okay, so number 2, converting. So what if we want to convert a list to a tuple, what can you do? Okay, so let's create a list first. Say for example L is equals to, say 3 or 10. So this is a list of 2 elements. So if I want to create a tuple like this way, I will just write tuple of L. Okay, now if you check here, this LT, that is now a tuple. They look similar, Okay, all both have two elements, but the functionalities that are available for a list and a tuple are very different. Okay, and later we'll discuss what is the importance of using a tuple compared to a list. Okay, so this is the way, just writing a tuple like this way, you can convert a tuple to a list. Yeah, convert a list to a tuple. Similarly, if you have tuple like this, say for example lt, so ltt, if I just write l list of this, okay, so this will convert this tuple to a list. Okay, as you can see, this has been converted to a list can be also converted to a tuple like this way, and the tuple can also be converted like this way. Okay, so this is the common way of changing data types. Okay, this is the same thing for a string as well. Okay, you can check it by yourself. Now, so this was the first thing. Now say for example, now the indexing operation is just the same as it was for list. Okay, so our original tuple was a, so if I write like this way, a of 0, that will give me the first element. It is exactly the same as it was for a string or a list. Okay, so indexing is the same, indexing which is same. Now let's come here to the important part. Say for example, if I want to assign some value here within a tuple, so if I write a of 0 is equals to, I want to change it to math. Okay, so see, it is going to give an error. Tuple object does not support item assignment. That means it is similar to the string that you cannot modify a tuple. Okay, you cannot provide item assignment or the deletion that were not available in string. The same thing for tuple, you cannot do those things using a tuple in a tuple. Okay, so we can write here that item assignment or deletion, okay, these are not possible. So these are not possible. Similarly, say for example, if you want to add an item to this tuple, okay, this was our original a. Say for example, if I want to add an item in this tuple using append, you will see it will not work. If I write like this way, a dot append, okay, as you can see, tuple object has no attribute append. That means you cannot add anything to the tuple. Okay, the bottom line is that a tuple is an unchangeable object. Okay, once you create an object, you cannot modify it, you cannot change it. Okay, so remember this thing very carefully, that tuple is completely unchangeable. Once you create it, it will be always remain the same. So you can think of it like this. Okay, write protect. Okay, there are some pdfs that you cannot write on some pdf, so the tuple object is similar. Okay, you cannot write, you cannot change it anymore once it is created. Okay, so item assignment or adding or removing, okay, it is the same, not possible, not possible. Okay, so let's move on. Now say for example, what if I want to do something? So for example, I want to modify this tuple, I need to, so what can I do about that? Say for example, I want to change the name English to math, so what can I do in that case? A simple way is to convert this tuple into a list first. Okay, so I can convert it like this way, list of a. Okay, so I have now this a, this is the same thing, but now it is a list. Now you can change this first item. Okay, if I want, so for example, a of 0 is equals to say math. Okay, so now it has been changed to math. Now I can just write a is equals to tuple of this modified list. Okay, so like this way I can actually change the tuple. You cannot directly change the tuple, you have to convert it to a list to change it. Okay, the same thing goes for a string as well. You cannot modify a string, you have to convert it to a list, then you can change any element as if you want. Okay, so I hope it is clear. Now let's see something interesting, that is called unpacking. Okay, unpacking. So unpacking means, say for example, I have a tuple that has two elements. So if I want to save it in two different variables. Okay, say for example v1 and v2, I can just write like this way. A, check, A is our original tuple, math and physics. Now v1 will take this math, v2 will take the physics. Okay, like this way. If you check here, v1 is math, v2 is physics, and both are string. Okay, so that means using this way, this comma, separating the name of the variables using comma, you can actually unpack a tuple as well as a list as well, the same thing. Okay, so this was not available in our MATLAB, but this is a very nice way to actually unpack something using this comma operation. Now you can also go further. So if I do, let's take another thing. Say for example, if I write something like this, so v1 comma v2 comma v3 is equals to a. Now this is going to generate an error. As you can see, not enough values to unpack. That is because your original tuple has two elements, but in the left side you are defining three elements, so that will not work. The left hand side and the right hand side should have same number of elements. Okay, now say for example, if you don't know that how many elements the original tuple has, say for example, let's create another tuple. It is equals to, okay, so there are 4 elements. Okay, so if I want to define v1 comma v2, I want to define two variables using e2. This is going to generate an error, but we can do something like this. If I provide this asterisk sign above v2, what it will do is that v1 will take the first element and the v2 will take all the elements that are remaining as a list. Okay, so check what is actually happening here. If you look at v1 is taking the 4, that was the first element, and v2 is taking all the elements, the remaining elements 8, 9, 0 as a list. Okay, the same thing if you do like this way, v1 comma v2 is equals to a2. Now try to guess what will happen. Okay, if I perform like this way, the opposite operation will happen. Now the v1 will take the first 3 elements and v2 will take only the last element that is remaining. Okay, so this way you can actually unpack a tuple as well as a list. Okay, so I hope this part it is clear. Now let's take a look at another thing. So our original tuple was A and LT. Okay, so A was our original tuple, LT was another tuple like this. Say for example, if I want to join this tuple together, I cannot modify our original tuple. A or LT, that tuple cannot be changed, but I can define a new tuple. Say for example A, I can use this operation A plus LT. This plus sign will perform the catenation operation, and if you look at your M, now as you can see, math, physics 3 and 10, these are appended all together. So this catenation operation is very flexible in Python, so you can catenate two tuples like this way. Okay, so the second is catenation. So catenation using this plus sign. Same thing goes for the multiplication. If I write like this way, M multiplied by 2, that is asterisk 2, that is the rep-mat operation. It will perform 2 copies of the original tuple will be created. Okay, so I hope so far it is clear. Now if you look at the methods, if you want to look at the methods of tuple, if you see like this, dir of tuple, this is our object. If I like this way, as you can see, only 2 methods are available in a tuple. One is count and another one is index, and I believe you already understand what this means. Say for example, if I want to find the index of an item, so for example a dot index, what is the value? Say for example math. Okay, now as you can see 0, because math is the first element in our tuple. Now if I do something like this, say for example m, as you can see, this m is not in a tuple. Understand, this whole math, this whole string is one item in our tuple, not the individual elements. Okay, so I hope so far it is clear. And you can also use the count operation to count how many elements, how many times a particular element appeared. Okay, if I write like this way, a dot count math, as you can see 1, because it actually appeared 1 times. Okay, so I hope so far it is clear about the very basic operations of a tuple.